If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial. If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
This is a More Than Just Podcast production.
Welcome to Spotcast Season 9, Episode 10. My name is Tim Mitra. I am in Toronto, Ontario, and I'm joined by Jonathan Kuline in Lawrenceville, Bristol, New Brunswick.
Hello there, kids.
And Jaime who?
Jaime.
We have no Jaime today.
Jaime is traveling through the wide vast universe. Traveling man.
Yep. Traveling man. Yes, he's the traveling man. Yes, he was born to be a traveling man. Doodaloo. Alrighty. So I didn't make any fact check notes from last week, so we'll just carry on.
Bravo to us.
Yeah.
It's been 2 weeks. We've passed the statute of limitations anyways.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, let's jump into the headlines. We have a lot of headlines to talk about this week, starting with some, well, depending on your mileage, some good or bad news. Starfleet Academy, the latest Star Trek series, is coming to an end after only 2 seasons, and only because they've already filmed the second season. They announced this week that Star Trek Starfleet Academy is getting the axe. Only 11 days after the first season ended. They didn't really talk about a lot of the reasons why. A lot of the stuff that they put out was very positive, I would say. CBS Studios and Paramount said they were very proud of the ambition of the series and blah, 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 blah. But it just seems like that with this regime change that is coming in the near future at Paramount, that they are probably looking to just sort of start and take credit for all their own things. And in spite of the fact that, you know, they've already built all the sets, they've already got all the actors, they've already got it all sort of lined up, they are pulling the plug on this one. So as we talked about in the previous episode of Spotcast, this is a weird one because it means that, you know, we've got 3 seasons of Star Trek in the can, basically recorded. They're doing some post-production, but they're all filmed. There's no more filming happening. And the future is, for the first time in a decade, very unclear. For those of you who have been with us since the beginning, this podcast started with Tim and Jaime wanting to talk about this newest iteration of Star Trek, starting with Discovery way back when, and hard to believe that's been 9 years almost. And yeah, it seems like by this time next year we're going to be at the end of all this, and where we go from there is anyone's guess. Surprised, disappointed?
Not surprised. I think, in this anti-woke society we live in right now, there's a lot of things about the show that I'm sure, was that guy Stephen Miller is his name, I guess?
Yep.
Doesn't like. Not that he has, full control over Star Trek, all that kind of stuff, but
yeah, I mean, it's a bummer because it seemed like there was a lot of potential there. It seemed like they were kind of rounding into form. I think we're all pretty happy with the way that they landed the first season. And it's disappointing to know that, I mean, if you look back over the last number of Star Trek series, this is one of the stronger sort of out of the gate. Some of the series of, we talked about Discovery definitely took a while to find its legs and maybe, depending on your interpretation, didn't ever find its legs. And yet, you go back and you look at, some of the series over the years, Deep Space Nine didn't really find its legs until a couple seasons in. Voyager didn't really find its legs until a couple seasons in. TNG didn't really find its legs until, a couple seasons in. This was a pretty strong first season, and it's really kind of a bummer that they're not going to let them have an opportunity to continue to grow and come together and tell really cool storylines. And I agree with you that, you're right, that the environment out there right now is a little hostile to progressive liberal ideas. Star Trek has always been on the front end of that. I believe it was William Shatner this week who basically said, if Star Trek in its original iteration in the 1960s had come on now, people would be calling it woke because there was a black woman on the bridge, there was interracial kisses, there was, progressive thoughts and ideals, so I hate to think that that's at the root of this, although I think it's at the root of a lot of stuff right now, and that's a shame. I guess the real question is where do they go from here, right? What's next? What do we do after there's no more Star Trek? We've speculated about a year one type of project, considering they already have a bridge and they already have a cast. Do they go there and that way they can just tell sort of classic Star Trek stories and try not to be too woke while the regime is currently in place, south of the border? I don't know. I'm bummed that
the rumor on day one is that it has been greenlit, so there is that potential, right?
Keep our fingers crossed. I mean, that's the thing, is I'm disappointed to know that this is only going to get one more season for Starfleet Academy. However, if they come out over the next few months and announce, hey, we're going to do a year one series and we're also going to try this different thing, if it's just a matter of taking different swings with Star Trek, I can't say I agree with it, but also it's not my money. And, I can vote with or without my dollars on this stuff and say, I'm not giving Paramount my money if I don't want to support it. I think it was only a couple of days. It was maybe a couple of days after the Paramount announcement. I sent you a note and said, I'm done. So Paramount got cut off for me. I'll probably buy back in once Strange New Worlds comes back, but it's not exactly a font of brilliant content from me outside of South Park and Star Trek. So if they're going to cancel the Star Trek, they're really not in a good position anymore.
Yeah. So was that the thing for you? Is that was the thing that broke the mold or whatever? Like,
I mean, I have been trying to be more mindful of the Lopez calculus as I look at, when my things come up. If I know that there's enough content to hold my interest for a year, obviously they do cut you a discount if you have a year subscription versus month to month. But with Paramount, I knew that we were going to be in this position because we knew we were getting a Starfleet Academy season that was early this year, and then there was going to be a gap of an undisclosed amount of time, and then we were going to get Strange New Worlds later this year. I knew there was going to be a gap of many months where there was going to be nothing for me, and so I kind of had always planned to drop it. And then when I was, when we got to the end of Starfleet Academy, of course, they decided to pull the plug on it. And also there has been a movement to encourage people who are disapproving of the merger or acquisition of Warner Brothers to sort of vote with your dollars. So it kind of worked out to be, fortuitous on both fronts. I, A, don't want to spend my money with them on principle right now, and B, don't want to spend my money on content that I don't really care about and that they insist upon filling their service with. So Let's flash back a week and a half to the Oscars. We haven't had an episode since the Oscars, and it was a pretty good one for, the little bit of the nerdy stuff that we like. Not really, I would say, any major surprises that really knocked my socks off. Best Picture and Best Director for One Battle After Another, and Paul Thomas Anderson for Best Director, Sean Penn won for Best Supporting Actor for that movie. Michael B. Jordan, big breakthrough for him, becoming only, I think, the 6th African-American actor or actress to win for a primary acting award for his portrayal of the twin brothers in Sinners. Yeah, it was even it was an Oscar in there for F1, Tim. Even F1 walked away with an Oscar for sound, I think. But and Jessie Buckley was the first Irish woman to win Best Actress. So, and I was both nauseated and horrified to discover that they gave out honorary Oscars before the event to choreographer Debbie Allen, deserving, production designer Wynn Thomas, deserving, and some guy named Tom Cruise. Yeah, so there's that. Won an honorary Oscar, which is good because that's about the only way he should ever be.
Thanks for coming out
in the same room as one. Anyway, it was a nice event. I enjoyed. I had seen a few of those movies and was excited about that. Actually, I was very excited to see that Hamnet arrived on Amazon here in Canada this week, so I will make some time for that. I'll make sure to bring my tissues with me. I've told it's a bit of a tearjerker, so have to look into that.
There are some pretty heavy scenes.
Yeah. We'll talk about it later in the show, but I just watched Begonia finally, so I'm catching up on my Best Picture nominees. So, yeah. Anyway, so overall, nice event. No major surprises. It did feel like a bit of a lifetime achievement Best Director Oscar for Paul Thomas Anderson, who has been making very good and very important movies for 30 years-ish now. So, bit of a shame for Ryan Coogler, but I suspect he'll be back, and I suspect there are Oscars in his future because he's an extraordinary.
Well, and Chloe Zhang too.
Same. You're right. Zhang, yeah. Same day as the Oscars was the other piece of news we were all a little eagerly anticipating, which was what's up with Firefly. So we had those social media teases, seemed like the band was getting back together. What's this going to be? And it turns out it is an animated series. So they've announced that they have gotten down the road on developing this. They have the blessing of all involved. They're, got the cast back together so they can do the voices, and all very exciting. What they don't have is a home for it yet. So what they're encouraging fans to do is to, again, use their power that they have, watch it on, Disney Plus, which is one of the places you can watch Firefly right now. Buy it, watch it, send a letter, share it on social media. Make sure that you're letting everybody who has an opportunity to find a home for this, to provide a home for this, because it seems like the gang are all in on it. Hopefully this will come to fruition. I saw the production design stuff they had for the characters. It looks pretty cool. It's not not what I would call like cartoony. It's more like Clone Wars-y kind of
anime style, yeah.
Exaggerated, but not childish by any means. So if it's continuing the same vibe, obviously I think it's kind of a catch-22. Do I want this to be a live action TV show? Do I want it to be a live action movie? Yes. Is a cartoon good enough? Sure. If it continues the story and they have the same energy and it plays well, great. I was thinking about that because we are currently still doing our rewatch of Star Trek the Animated Series, which of course was the bridge between the original series and the movies, which again led back to more TV shows. So who's to say where the future goes if this is a popular product?
Well, it wasn't quite a bridge because it came out on the heels of the TV show reruns, right? And then there was like a long time before the first movie. I mean, I was watching this in 70 when
It was 5 years between the animated series and
the first movie. Yeah. So it was a long time.
No, it was
only a few years.
It's been 20 years since Firefly came out. So
no, I know. I'm not comparing. I'm just correcting you on your statement about the fact that it was the bridge between, because it wasn't. It was on afterwards, and then there was nothing for many years. Not even rumors. Barely rumors. It was that Star Trek 2 thing, which became a lot of the shows that we later saw. But yeah, and other franchises have tried this. We have Clerks. I was just going to ask you, where can I watch the Clerks cartoon?
On a DVD. That's about it.
Yeah, and then there's also the Scott Pilgrim crew cast that did a live reading or something like that.
Well, they did the Netflix series, right? They did the one that was on Netflix last year, where they did it in the animation style of Brian Lee O'Malley's comics, but with the voices from
it was like in parallel with the movie.
It basically it's like a what if story of Scott Pilgrim. It's what if something changed in the original story, and then it kind of goes sideways from there. But
it was enjoyable. The same stars that were in the movie,
exact same actors that did the voices for the characters in the movie. But that one definitely is a different visual take, because it's much more visually like the comic book, so it's a little more anime style, a little more cartoony, not sort of realistic, much more animated, but really enjoyable. I enjoyed that series a lot. So yeah. Speaking of the Buffy / Firefly / Whedonverse content, we did get the sad news last week as well that the Buffy reboot that speaking of Chloe Zhang and Sarah Michelle Gellar were working on is kaput. They have decided, the powers that be have decided that they are not moving forward with it at Hulu. So it was, it's one of those stories where, obviously there's a little he said, she said, who knows what's the truth. But Sarah Michelle Gellar said she was pretty shocked that they, didn't like it, and she said nobody saw this coming, and she said that there was one executive who was very negative to the product and basically said I never watched the original and was very proud of that fact and didn't really get it and didn't really like it. And sometimes that's all it takes, is to have one person who's just like, yeah, it's not for me, and therefore it's not for anybody. So yeah, that's a real drag.
So who is Hulu these days? Like, I'm losing track of where these people.
Disney.
This is Disney. Okay.
Yeah.
So
Disney. Yeah. Yep. And they're in a bit of a transition phase right now too. But it sounds like basically they shot a pilot. They basically said, well, go back and rework more stuff on the pilots. They reshot the pilot. And then they basically had a plan for like a 10, 12 episode first season. And in the end, they basically passed on it and said no. So they're not saying that nothing will ever happen anywhere, but this version, this iteration, this way of moving forward is no more, which is a bit of a drag, because not only was it going to bring Buffy back and the Buffyverse back, but obviously Sarah doing this, Chloe Zhao working on this, that's a pretty big name to have involved in this. And they cast the young woman, her name is Ryan, and I'm forgetting her last name. She was the one who was in Skeleton Crew. She was the lead young woman on Skeleton Crew, who I think we all agreed was very good for her, especially for her age as a performer. And I thought that she was going to be a really good fit for sort of a young, strong female lead. And so again, a bit of a shame there that we're not going to get to see that either. So, and even beyond that, Sarah Michelle Gellar has now come out and said, if they ever release this pilot, don't watch it. It's a work in progress. It's not going to make a lot of sense. It's not very good the way that they basically asked for us to make it. So don't use that as the judge of everything we were doing. It just, it's basically, it is what it is, and it didn't work out, and maybe someday someone will do something else with this and it'll bring it back. But yeah, I mean, it's funny, in a world where there's so much nostalgia content, it seemed like a slam dunk and a no-brainer to do this, and yet here we are. And the beats keep on coming for Buffy fans. We had one of the stars of the original series passed away last week, Nicholas Brendan, who was one of the main stars of the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer, playing the role of Xander. died last week in his sleep at the age of 54. Extremely sad to have lost him so soon. His career as a performer definitely fizzled out. He didn't really have a lot of success post Buffy, and struggled with some issues with mental health and addiction. But he created an indelible character. He was the person who had no powers. He was the guy, amongst the slayers and the witches and the warlocks and the vampires and all these different, magical and empowered people. He was just a guy, and he brought a lot of pathos and a lot of importance to that series as sort of one of the main three characters between him and Alison Hannigan and Sarah Michelle Gellar. So yeah, really, really, really sad. And obviously 54 is way too young to be going, but alas, there it is. Couple more passings this last week too. We lost Valerie Perrine, died at the age of 82.
Miss
Tessmacher. So for those of you who are not familiar with the name Valerie Perrine, she was a very big star back in the 1970s. She was Miss
Montana
Tessmacher.
Wildcat too in Slaughterhouse-Five.
Yep. She was Miss Tessmacher in the original Superman the Motion Picture. So this was like Lex Luthor's sort of mall or main female character, supporting character. Very famously rescues Superman in that movie, and again, she's very renowned in that era. She's just an absolutely beautiful woman. And yeah, you're right. She was known for a lot of different things in the 70s. Slaughterhouse-Five, Lenny, lots of stuff. A good long life. Unfortunately, she had Parkinson's disease for the last decade or so, and passed away this last week. But big legacy, big life. And this one is another one that just kind of caught me sideways and kicked me in the butt. Sam Keith died last week. Sam Keith was only 63. This is the co-creator of The Sandman, the series, that one of the most iconic comic book for adult series ever created. He was the creator of a series called The Max, which is extremely popular Image comic and self-published comic. An extremely unique artist and storyteller. Really, really, just really, really beloved artist. He had been suffering from Lewy body dementia, which is a degenerative disease. So extremely sad that was the end of his life, but left behind an incredible body of artistic and creative work that a lot of people are big fans of. It was funny. I'm still connected to a number of people in the comic book community, and there was quite an outpouring of people who talked about how beloved he was and just how unique he was as a visual artist, and also just how it's funny how some things just you do these things for the big publishers and they own the rights and they republish them, and there's always an availability, and some of his work is just, it's hard to come by because he was self-publishing and he owned the rights to his stuff, which means you had to jump through more hoops, and so it's a bit of a shame that there isn't more of his work available. Hopefully in his passing there'll be an opportunity for people to maybe license his work so his family can continue to earn from his considerable talents. But yeah, very, very sad to see him go. If you want a glimpse of that, I highly recommend reading Sandman #1. It's just a beautiful opportunity to look at just his brilliant artistic style. That first sort of arc of Sandman, working alongside, of course, Neil Gaiman. Just really, really exceptional and really, really fit the tone of that series, and really set the stage for what became one of the most iconic series of all time. So very sad. But let's move on to some happier stuff. We got a couple of big trailers this last week. We got Spider-Man Brand New Day. We got our first look, finally. And we got our first little teaser for Dune Part 3. Spider-Man, of course, coming in July, and Dune not coming till December. But we had been talking about Spider-Man and the fact that we hadn't seen much about that. And it was kind of weird considering, how soon it was coming up and how, we'd already seen stuff for Avengers Doomsday, which isn't coming until December. We've seen trailers for stuff that's coming way down the line. We hadn't seen anything for Spider-Man yet. First trailer's a little teasery, not, they kind of jump through things pretty fast, obviously on the heels of what happened in the last Spider-Man movie. Mary Jane and Ned don't remember. Nobody remembers that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. He's kind of in a bad place. He's kind of figuring out where things go, and hence Brand New Day, right? It's a whole new deal for Peter Parker and Spider-Man.
And Aunt May's dies in the previous movie?
Yes. For spoilers, if you haven't seen a movie that came out 5 years ago.
Well, it's been for several years, yes.
Yes. So, his sort of supporting, the people who are most important to him, none of them are around anymore. And obviously those, we see Ned and MJ in the trailer, so they are around in here. How they will fit into his new existence is remains to be seen. And then for Spider-Man, it's the same thing. Again, nobody knows who's behind the mask again. So now there's this sort of new reality for him as well. What did you think of the trailer, and did anything jump out at you?
Well, I mean, it was interesting, the sort of perspective of nobody remembering who he was. But then again, he's also got to that point in his career as Spider Guy to realize that, anybody who's close to him would be in danger as well, right? So, it looks interesting. I when we were in England, I think they were filming in Scotland at the time, so there was a lot of stuff on the social media about him, filming a scene in the truck or whatever. And he got, we didn't talk about this last.
Yeah, he hurt his back.
Last time we mentioned this movie being he got hurt, right? So, it looks interesting. I mean, good continuation of the story, and we'll see where it goes. I mean, and kind of funny that it's like, it's almost like a Kelvin universe sort of a deal, like it's the same people, same characters, but and is he not in high school? Does he not have to why wouldn't he just reform those friendships naturally, right? You'd think. Yeah, well, I think... Or is he avoiding them?
I think it's a catch-22 for him because the high school thing, I think, is they're supposed to be basically done. So I think in one of the scenes in the trailer, you see him wearing an Empire State University sweater, and that is the university that he goes on to attend and later teach at in the comic books. So I would imagine that by this phase, it's supposed to be, we're now entering sort of Peter Parker, the college years. And it looks like in the trailer that's kind of the vibe, is that he's trying to figure out how he can reconnect those things. We see him at one point, he's like practicing reading a letter, right? Where he's written a letter to MJ basically saying like, you don't remember me, but we're really important to each other. So it'll be interesting to see how that stuff plays out. But it also looks like he's going to have his hands full because we saw lots of different villainous characters, creeping in there, and the Scorpion we saw from a couple movies back, and so there's definitely going to be some fun stuff mixed in there, but it will be interesting to see if they can land this plane, because it is a bit more of a complex premise than previous Spider-Mans.
But aren't the characters supposed to have come from other universes and stuff, or
no? In this case,
like that, I mean the enemies.
No, in this case, it depends on how they decide to do this, right? In theory, they might be setting up, following up on the Venom stuff that came out of the end of the Venom movie that tied into Spider-Man, and so it remains to be seen how much they're going to do this going forward, how much they're doing to set up stuff that's going to happen in the MCU, how much they're doing stuff to set up in future potential Spider-Man spin-off movies. I suspect that as this is the last Marvel movie that we're getting before Avengers Doomsday, that this will kind of be about positioning Peter Parker for what role he's going to play in that.
And nobody remembers who he is, even Bruce Banner, right?
Yeah, and we see that in the trailer, that basically the culmination of the last movie is that nobody at all knows who he is anymore, and so he is just like a blank slate for everybody. And so now where do you go from there?
Oh, be careful what you wish for, right?
Yeah, exactly right.
Was that the premise of the last movie? He spun the wheel and got the wrong choice.
He did. Dune Part 3, again, this was much more of a teaser trailer. Again, lots of sort of faces and some dark images. Again, they're not going to sort of spoil too much. And, they're sort of building this up as like the climactic conclusion of this trilogy, which will be interesting to see because it's not, as book readers will know, this is not the end. And
20 books
also,
or something, right?
The timelines are a little different than the books because theoretically the second book, which is what we're now starting into for Dune Part 3, takes place in a big time jump, and the whole series takes place over long time jumps. So I don't know how they're going to land this plane, if they're going to follow things fairly sort of loyally. Although it's kind of cool because Dune Part 1 and Part 2 covered the first book and covered the sort of same scope of events as the David Lynch 1986 movie. This will be the first time in a while that we've gotten a chance to sort of move past that, especially on this kind of scope and scale. So it'll be cool to see what they decide is going to be important if this is the last Denis Villeneuve controlled Dune story, what he wants to sort of, how he wants to land this plane, and if they're going to wrap it up with a bow or if they're going to be like, we could tell more of these stories and make more money off this.
You had mentioned that it's kind of important to them, obviously, to have Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya in the movie, right? Because that's where the money is. Those are the names, and if they switched names, it would be like Gladiator 2 with Pedro Pascal. People would be like, "What?
Yeah,
what?"
Yeah. I think it would be really ambitious, and one of the most ambitious film projects I've watched over the past number of years was Richard Linklater's Boyhood, where he and the crew basically reconvened every certain amount of time to continue to tell more of the story and actually film the same actors as they get older, from some of them from children to adulthood and some of them from young adulthood into mature adulthood. I think it would be really interesting to take that kind of tack with something like Dune, where you could come back to bring Zendaya and Timothée Chalamet back in a decade and bring, Denis Villeneuve and tell this story over the course of generations. However, I understand how money works in the film industry, and they're like, We're not going to do that. We want to make our money now. And also, we already know that Denis Villeneuve is going to go work on James Bond after this. So he wanted to get this done. He wanted to be the one to land this plane on the trilogy. And so we'll see.
Do we know who the new James Bond is yet?
No, they haven't said yet. All we know is that Denis going to direct it.
All right. Okay.
This one's for you, For All Mankind. For fans, season 5 starts on Friday. So lots of hype around that. And they also announced that season 6 is going to be the last one. So as you're opening your Apple TV to watch some Apple TV on your Apple TV, you can check in and watch season 5 and know that you're into the home stretch here.
Yeah. So I've been reading, having David Pogue read me Apple the First 50 Years. Book, and there's obviously a chapter on Apple TV, right? And he talks about the reason why they decided to do their own TV thing is so they wouldn't have to get into the bidding wars for shows, and that's why they set up their company, right? So, and that's why Apple kind of like has their own good shows, and they're Apple only kind of thing. That's part of the motivation between why they do that. So I just thought it was interesting that we've talked about this on the show before, is like, we'll get stuff, Jaime will get stuff on, name some Max or whatever, and we'll get it on Prime or Crave or whatever.
Yeah.
Like we got something the other day, I think it was Begonia, he didn't get on Amazon, but we did, And that's because the buyers for those particular stations buy the rights to show them in countries, right? Whereas Apple can now, Apple likes to be in charge of things, so just an interesting little sort of side segue on the fact that For All Mankind, which is their fictitious take on history.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Halt and Catch Fire is to the computer industry. It's a fictitious telling of a thing, right? But it'll be interesting to see where they go with this, because I think they should be on Mars by now in this season, right, coming up.
Yeah.
So they already had a fictitious, base on the moon and all that kind of stuff, which the Americans are apparently working on right now. So
goody. Yeah, I think it's always interesting when they take something like the end of the world or dystopia and sort of play it out. I think that's why The Walking Dead was such an interesting series, because it's not about the apocalypse, it's what comes after the apocalypse, right? And in this case, it's not necessarily it's about the space race, but it's then what would happen if from that point on everything was different. And it kind of, it's a really smart idea. So okay, a couple more quick ones. Wonder Man renewed for season 2. This one surprised me. I thoroughly enjoyed the first season, and even though it was probably the most non-super heroic Marvel thing they've done so far, I thought it was really an interesting take. But I figured it was probably a one and done, especially because they just kind of dropped it all at once and walked away from it. But they are bringing it back for season 2, so really interesting to hear that. What do you think about a season 2 for this one?
Well, it'd be interesting to see where the story goes. I don't know if they're going to have what's the anarchist guy's name come back.
Oh yeah. Ben Kingsley character,
yeah, that character. I wonder if he'll come back. But
Trevor Slattery?
I don't know. I mean, like you.
Trevor Slattery?
What's that? Oh, is that his name? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an interesting show because, like you said, it did sort of get that sense of it didn't really sort of take off, and it reminded me a bit of, we talked about this when we reviewed it. It was a bit like that other show they had with I think it was on Disney. It was another Marvel thing that was just kind of like not very good. And
yeah, I mean, there's been a couple series. There was the Eyes of Wakanda they put out last year that kind of, they just dropped all 4 of them and then walked away from it. We never heard from it again. And then there was the Echo series. They did that as well. They dropped it and they just sort of...
Oh, Echo was good. That was the one with the girl on the bike, right? Mm-hmm. The girl with the artificial limbs. I thought that one was so enjoyable.
I've enjoyed them all in their own way. It's just, again, your mileage varies, right? And it's weird because sometimes when they do that, you worry that they're just kind of rushing it out the door and they don't have faith in it. That's what I took from their decision to just sort of drop Wonder Man all at once and just, not spread it out over 6 weeks or whatever. But apparently it must have hit the algorithm all right, because they're going to make some more. Another Marvel project coming. We knew that they were going to do this sort of Punisher special that they've been working on. The Punisher special, which is called One Last Kill, is coming the week after Daredevil ends. So it's coming on May 12th. They announced that, and they announced the title, One Last Kill. So we are going to get... we got 1 episode of Daredevil Born Again this week. We get 2 next week, and then it's 1 all the way out until the 5th, and then the 12th will be the Punisher special. So I get a bunch of Marvel in your Disney Plus feed for the next little while.
So do you think the Punisher will have a tie-in to the last, or the finale of Daredevil? It's on its heels?
I think there's going to be a few things. So I think we will see Punisher probably back in this season of Daredevil, because he was in the first season, and it does seem like the whole season is about getting other vigilantes and superheroic, street-level superheroic people together. We've seen Kristen Ritter back as Jessica Jones in the trailer. But also, I think it's kind of an in-betweener, because he's ground level with Daredevil and has been in Daredevil, but also we've now seen him in the trailer for Spider-Man Brand New Day, right? So it's kind of tying all those things together, and it comes out basically 6 weeks before the new Spider-Man movie too. So I think it's a bit of connective thread between all 3 of those things. I would not be surprised if we saw, obviously we're going to see Punisher and Spider-Man connected in that movie. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw Daredevil and other street-level New York-based heroes in that movie as well, which would be cool, because they all cover the same turf, and they are very interactive in the comics universe.
Cool. All right. So you said Stephen Colbert's got a new job, I guess?
Yeah, it's, we've been feeling bad for poor Steve Colbert, who's losing his job on his late night program, not too far away, only about 6 more weeks to go. But apparently he's landing on his feet, so he is going to be co-writing a new Lord of the Rings movie. I'm both pleasantly surprised and a little shocked. So he, along with his son, are working on a new movie that is apparently set after the events of Lord of the Rings, and it is going to be sort of focused around Samwise's kid. sort of retracing the steps of the path of the Lord of the Rings events, but also trying
Fellowship of the Ring.
Also trying to uncover a whole new mystery. I think it could be really interesting. I'm not sure whether or not there are some good stories to be told outside of stuff that Tolkien's already done. But I think if you're going to try it, bring in people who are passionate about it, who get the characters, who understand it and why it matters, who understand, who are people who have studied Tolkien's work. And I can't think of a better suited person than Stephen Colbert, who is a lifelong and highly devoted Tolkienologist. So,
and he's an expert. Yeah, he's like you can't. I've seen people try and challenge him on his show and they just lose, right?
Oh, I mean, he's encyclopedic knowledge of not just like every detail of all of his works, but also the man himself and all the subtext and. This is somebody who lives and breathes this stuff. So, good for him. I'm really excited to see what he comes up with. Again, I am all for hiring people who are passionate about things to do things, as opposed to people who are just looking for a job. So,
did you ever see the interview with him and Robert Plant?
I don't think I did.
Well, because the Lord of the Rings shows up in
it's a ton of
Led Zeppelin
stuff.
lyrics, right? Yeah, and so he was like, Robert Plant was just astounded with the amount of knowledge that Stephen Colbert had, and even offered to invite him to a beer after the interview.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, we all love Steve, unless we happen to own the network he works for.
Yeah. Well, yeah, their days are numbered. Well, that brings us to the main part of the show where we talk about something Star Trek related. So we're going back to the animated series, Star Trek the Animated Series from 72-73. And we're going to, it's starting with season 2. Now, just a bit of a note here in that Paramount is showing the episodes in the wrong order, very much like Firefly, because I think the Pirates of Orion should be the first episode. According to IMDb, and you probably have the box set. You can probably check that too.
I do,
right?
yeah.
Because I think that they're supposed to be in the order in which they were presented on TV. But anyway, so
the thing is there's a mix between air date and production number, right? So sometimes we get these things, you get them in the original air date, and sometimes you get them in the production order, and sometimes that really messes things up, as you just referenced Firefly. Those ones, they did not put them out in the production order. They put them out in a really, really bad way that really messed up the ability to enjoy that series. People,
yeah. Well, I was going to say, as you were talking about Firefly earlier, I was wondering if has somebody documented the order in which they were broadcast? Because it'd be interesting to go back and rewatch it in the wrong order.
Yeah. So the first episode,
the first
episode they showed on TV was The Train Job, which I think is episode 3 or 4. Yeah, so they started with that one without any kind of background or context. So yeah, and then they went back and told, because they felt like the original, the first 2-parter is not, going to hook people in. I'm like, why would you want to get to know the characters before you start having adventures with them?
Yeah, well, I vaguely remember watching it back on City TV or whenever it was on, and I remember like going, "What is this?" and just flip channels after a few minutes, right? But that may have been why. Anyway, so we're going to talk about season 2. What we're calling season 2, episode 1, according to Paramount, is BEM, and then we'll talk about the second episode, which is Albatross, which again are not in the correct order, and we'll try and figure out why they're not matching.
But good news, folks, there are only 6 episodes of season 2 of the animated series.
That's true.
We will be through 1/3 of the series in about 10 minutes. So yeah, won't be too confusing. You'll be able to follow along pretty easily on this one.
Yeah, and these were both sort of Star Trek tropes episodes. I mean, this one is almost like Bem is a character who's like a sort of mischievous guy who comes on board to be like a crew member. He's like a guest crew member, and turns out they end up on a planet, and he's able to split his body up and kind of escape from whatever prison they're put into. So he's kind of the one that causes the problem for Kirk and Spock, and I don't know if McCoy was on that planet, I forgot. But just kind of a weird episode. I wouldn't say it was one of the better ones, but
no, it didn't really didn't really love this one myself. The same thing. It was like, it wasn't like they've done these sort of mischievous characters, both in the animated series and the original series and throughout Star Trek. But they also portrayed him as kind of a jerk. Like, he's not like mischievous. He's kind of just a jerk. So it's not like you're like, oh, you rapscallion. You're just like, stop being a jerk. So that was kind of weird. And then you were talking about tropes. This one also has the like giant entity that is watching over a species, but not wanting other people to interfere with the species. Kind of, that is a well-worn Star Trek trope. There's this non-corporeal entity that is basically just this booming woman's voice that is saying like, don't mess with my babies on this planet. So yeah, this one is very, very Star Trek trope heavy, but I will say it's probably not the best execution in either way.
Yeah, it's definitely one you can skip.
Yeah. No, and
nothing's lost or gained with this one.
If you're watching the whole run, whatever. This is one where you can check your email while you're watching it. It's not an all-timer. It's not a banger. The only reason this one's important, though, is this is the first time in Star Trek lore that we hear what the T in James T. Kirk stands for. It's a little factoid.
Tiberius?
I saw that online. Whether or not it's true, I don't know. This episode came out when I was 9 months old. Tiberius, yes. But yeah, they make a comment about it in this episode, and I was looking up some background information, and it said this marks the first time that Captain Kirk's full name is given, revealing the middle initial stands for Tiberius. Up until then, he'd only been known as James T. Kirk, and they did not say what the T was in the original series, I guess. So there you go.
Well, they've also said that this is not canon, right? This series.
No, I mean, it's pretty far out there. I can see why they wouldn't want to necessarily canonize some of this stuff. But
yeah. And this was just to get something on Saturday morning too, right?
Yeah.
To cash in on the rerun possibilities.
Yeah. I thought
there was something too. There was another note about one of the authors, one of the writers was like 19 or something when he wrote this.
Oh wow, really?
I don't know if it's this episode or I think maybe it's the Pirates of Orion, which is coming up. Yeah, okay. So that's what it is. So Pirates of Orion is September 7th. Bem was September 14th, and the Albatross is September 28th. So Albatross is actually the fourth one. So we're skipping around. Thanks.
In 2 episodes from now, you'll have it all down, folks. You'll have all of our reviews.
Well, they'll be like, you can decide whether you want to watch it in the correct order or the Paramount order or
exactly.
The Machete Order.
That's right, the Machete Order. The Machete Order for Star Trek animated series. We'll get working on that.
Or you just skip all of the episodes. Yeah, here it is. So it's this episode here. It's The Pirates of Orion was written by Howard Weinstein when he was 19 years old.
Good for him.
Youngest writer of a Star Trek in the Star Trek universe. But that's next week.
In the meantime,
let's move on to the Albatross.
Yes.
Which again is another trope. Didn't Wesley walk on the grass and get arrested?
Well, this was a little bit bigger than the walking on the grass. So they end up going to a planet where I guess in the past, McCoy had come and helped them with a plague that they were suffering through. And then they realized when they came back to this planet, they were like, oh, thanks for coming. By the way, we're going to arrest your doctor for mass murder because he killed all these people. And so basically the episode follows Kirk and Spock trying to figure out, what really happened during that. And, again, we obviously didn't suspect that McCoy had mass murdered anyone. Even the term mass murder is pretty weird here, where they're like, he tried to save people from a plague. It didn't work. They all died from that plague. And they're like, well, that's mass murder. It's like, it's not really. If you tried and it didn't work, are you a murderer? I don't think that's the case. But
genocide was a trope in the actual TV show.
For sure.
One guy in the prison. But there's also the episode where and he was another one of these that guy guys, actor, the captain who's hiding in the engineering area. Remember that one, that episode? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is a similar idea. Like, they obviously find a survivor and he's hiding,
Yeah, and they
bring him out and say,
it basically, in this case, they go to the site of where this, plague had taken place, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They end up encountering this person who had survived the plague, and they're trying to figure out, well, how did you survive? And in the end, it basically works out that it wasn't actually anything that McCoy did, of course. It was something environmental. It was to do with the spatial aurora that was messing things up. And of course, they decide not to prosecute him for something that did that. I did think it was very...
The symptoms are they turn blue, right? And then they turn green at some point?
I think he says they change color like 3 times. If they turn red, then they die. I did think it was very fun use of the animation style to do this story, where like you don't have to put, funny colored makeup on all the actors. You could just change their skin from pink to blue, but... I did think it was very funny that...
And then green. Doesn't Kirk turn green at one point?
I did think it was the funniest of all that Uhura turned the exact same shade of blue as everyone else. I'm like, well, I'm pretty sure that's not how melanin works, but all right.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know. You've got more melanin than me. You tell me. Would you and I turn the same shade of blue if we got sick? I don't know.
Well, in the wintertime, we're the same color, but in the summertime, we're not.
That's true.
Because I'm one of those brown people that changes over the year.
Yeah. I'm one of those white people that hits the sun, bursts into flames. So, that's all good. This was a stronger episode, I would say, than BAM. I definitely felt a little more engaged by this one. Obviously, in a 23-minute cartoon series, you know that they're not going to linger long on the, accusations. But, it is pretty straightforward, but a little more entertaining, I would say, than the first one.
But it's a kids show too. That's the part that's interesting about it. We
talked about this before, though. I think they do a really good job in this series of not dumbing it down, though, right? Like, they are not hiding from science. They're not hiding from challenging concepts. They're talking about, the concept of God. They're talking about the concept of mortality. Like, they're dealing with some stuff in this series that is not talking to like a 8-year-old with a bowl of Cheerios. They're talking to people who might actually have to think their way through some stuff. So, I mean, 1974, this is pretty heady stuff.
Yeah, and before we move on, I do have a fact check. The series ran from 73 to 75, not 72, 73, like I said.
There you go. Yeah, I knew that it overlapped my my birth in there somewhere. I think one of the episodes from season 1 came out like 2 days after I was born, which is pretty funny.
Yeah, and the 75 thing kind of explains why I didn't finish watching the series, because I was probably, doing other things at that age.
Yeah, those things, they
not quite where you're thinking, John, but I was probably out and about.
Out and about. Yes, indeed.
Now, a word from our sponsor. Now, back to the show.
All right. Well, should we move on to non-Star Trek content?
Sure.
How about some Daredevil Born Again, Season 2, Episode 1, The Northern Star?
Yeah. So, I think I have a question for this one, but you can sort of do the synopsis first.
Yeah, I mean, we pick up not long after the events from Season 1, where, Wilson Fisk, the Kingpin, has basically taken over New York as the mayor. He has created this Freeport area where he's smuggling stuff. He's basically, imagine this, a rich politician is using his position to take advantage of the system and make things easier for his rich and criminal friends. That's a fictitious idea. How could they have come up with something like this? I can't imagine. So here we start the episode with a pretty cool little scene. It reminded me of, do you remember the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 2, where you have to sneak aboard the ship and stuff people in lockers and do that whole thing? That was the vibe that I was getting from this one, especially because it's the exact same strait along the East River. But
the question I wanted to know was off the hop was, why would the doors on the boat be made of balsa wood?
Oh, well, I think that was supposed to be like a fake door, right? But
a phony door. Okay.
Yeah, because that's where they were hiding the stuff that was supposed to be whatever. So basically, Daredevil goes inside this ship looking for contraband. He takes out a bunch of bad guys in pretty cool Daredevil-esque fashion, and then turns out that this ship is smuggling large amounts of arms into New York City. They basically realize that Daredevil is there, and they follow their orders, which is if Daredevil shows up on the ship, sink the ship. So they drop this ship into the East River, nose first, and yeah, so then it becomes kind of this whole, where are we going to go from here? There clearly the crime is, out of control. We don't really get, like, last season that ended with Daredevil basically saying, like, we're going to need to get everybody together to work against this. Here we don't get a lot of that, although we do get the sort of continuation of his reunion with Deborah Ann Wall's character, who comes in, and the two of them are back to being.
But is that a strange relationship, do you think? Like, I was going to ask about that.
I mean, in the comics, it was always extremely weird and dysfunctional, and here it is.
But did they have a relationship in the comics?
Yeah,
or?
Karen and Matt had been a couple off and on throughout. Again,
okay.
Because the series,
they weren't in the first series. It was Foggy and her, right?
No, she and Foggy weren't together. They were just like really close friends. No, she and Matt. So she was in the comics originally, because it was made in the 60s. She was their secretary. The two of them were lawyers. Here she comes on as a much more empowered role. She's their investigator and stuff like that. But yeah, so the two of them are kind of working together.
But technically his employee, right? Technically his employee,
yes.
Not that there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
Right? There was all kinds of things wrong with that.
If you follow along with the Daredevil comics, and there have been so many great Daredevil stories over the last 60 years, the complex relationship between Matt and Karen is plays out over a long period of time, right into sort of the modern era. So it starts out as her being the sort of the stereotypical 1960s secretary, into the 1970s and early 80s, where she has a really bad time in the comic books, becomes a drug addict. She becomes a prostitute. She has a really, sort of sordid phase there. And in one of the comics, she actually outs. She provides Matt's identity to the underground, and that starts a really bad period in his time. And then her character carries right through into the Kevin Smith era of Daredevil from the early 2000s. That is a pretty major arc called Guardian Devil that includes her as well. So the two of them have been very intertwined throughout that, and all that to say that here, we kind of get to them coming back together, and not just coming back together as colleagues, but coming back together as lovers. And so that's sort of the foundation. And then a lot of this episode, I will say, for the first episode back, they start you off with a kick. You get Daredevil right off the hop. He does the investigating, of the ship, and then we go to a lot of Matt Murdock. A lot of, behind the scenes stuff, a lot of the politics stuff. We get a little more Daredevil at the end of the episode. But it's a little bit, I found it a little bit not as strong a start as I wanted. Now, I have read a few people who got advanced review copies of the first 3 episodes. They said by the time you get through next week, when you've cleared the first 3, you'll be like guns ablaze and let's go. This is great after the races. But I do feel like, we sometimes talk about is it better to do 1 episode to start? Is it better to do 2, 3? Like, what do you need to get things kind of hooked in? This was good, but I don't think it like knocked my socks off as far as the first episode. We get a little bit more of, the behind the scenes, BB Urich doing her stuff. Like, it's almost like a check-in on a lot of different characters and sort of where everybody is. But it didn't really, like, I wasn't like, dun, dun, dun. The only thing, obviously, at the end of this one is, something that we already knew, which is Bullseye, who had shot Matt in the final episode last season. For some reason known only to him, actually saves him in this episode, right? He comes into a spot to save his investigator for his law firm, Cherry, and he gets distracted because Cherry's having a heart attack basically in the chair, and these cops overpower him and pull off his mask and reveal his identity, and you're like, whoa, where's this going? And then all of them die in a very quick burst of knives, and you realize, yeah, what's going on here? And then you realize it's Bullseye has just saved him, and you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, his name's his icon's on the.
Why is Bullseye doing this? So Yeah, I mean,
I don't know.
not terrible as far as sort of setting the stage. Like it kind of just.
Well, Bullseye was trying to shoot Fisk. Actually, let's correct that.
He was, but he did shoot Mad. Like Matt
because Matt jumped in the way
because
he realized it was he sensed a gun.
Yes,
as only Daredevil can.
Yes, but yeah, no, I think it wasn't like a knock your socks off debut, but it definitely was a little more coherent as far as like setting the stage, getting us in place. I agree. I think, if we do have a 2-episode week next week, by the time we get through 3 episodes, I feel like we're going to be better oriented.
Oh, it's two episodes next week?
2 episodes next week, yeah. So they're doing 1, then 2 episodes, and then one to the end to get to the end of the season on the beginning of May. I don't know. They haven't said. They put out a release on their social media saying, here's the schedule. So I updated our calendar for Spotcast to keep track of it. But yeah, so next week we're getting 2 episodes. So there must be a reason. They did do that in season 1 as well. There was 1 week where they dropped 2 episodes. Maybe the episodes make sense better together, or where they want you to be as far as the story is engaged. But that is what they are doing. Again, good start, but not a great start. And I feel like I would have liked if you wanted to hook me in the first episode, I would have liked to have seen one of those street level at Netflix era stars come back. I wanted to see Jessica. I wanted to see Luke Cage. I wanted to see something that sort of tied to the bigger picture. And I suspect we'll get that next week, but I was kind of hoping based on the trailer that's where we were going to start with a bang, and we didn't. So maybe that's why I just set myself up for disappointment. I don't know.
Okay.
Do you want anything else to add about Daredevil, or do you want to jump into Invincible?
I said sorry, not Siri. Goodbye, Siri.
That's why that product's not made for Canadians. We apologize too much.
Moving on to Invincible?
Sure. So Invincible back on Amazon. They dropped the first 3 episodes on day 1, and this week we got episode 4. So I know you're still catching up. You've got a couple to go, but
I've only seen the first 2. Yeah. Well, it's funny. Before we get into Invincible, I don't know. Like, there's a lot of character. I watched all of season 3 before, just in a binge yesterday or the day before. And there's a lot of going through people, like especially with Oliver, right? Where there's one scene where he flies through a guy and takes him out. And there's a lot of that kind of, but if you're, I was doing other things, I just had it on in the background so I could sort of catch up with the story and things like that. Because there's a lot, I guess, if you're into the smashing and the bashing and the lots of blood and teeth missing kind of stuff, more power to you. But I found that you can watch the show just by just not looking at all that stuff, and you still get the gist of what's happening in the story.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's it does, obviously the fight scenes and stuff like that can be a little drawn out, so it's not for everything. I mean, the first episode of this season pays off some stuff that had been set up in the past with the Sequids had come back. We knew that they were going to be a threat. One of the things that I've always liked about Robert Kirkman's writing, which is what this is all adapted from, is he's always good at just sort of letting you know that whatever you're watching, whether it's really over or it's maybe over, he's always good at sort of making you think about stuff that could be coming down the road. For example, in the first episode, we get the payoff of some of the stuff that's been happening in just little small scenes over the past year of the Sequids coming back. And then that turns into a huge moment because Mark then has to decide whether or not somebody lives or dies based on the threat, right? And he's in a very dark place. So, it all kind of ties together. But also in this episode, Conquest, who was the character who came and had this massive fight, devastating fight, which almost killed Eve and trashed huge parts of the world. Gory, huge fight at the end of the last season. Conquest basically wakes up because Cecil kept him alive as opposed to letting him die, which was what he was supposed to do. And Conquest escapes. So we know that Conquest is going to come back, right? So we kind of get a little bit of the payoff of a past storyline and then tied into something that's going to build for later. It's not like Conquest just wakes up and goes right after Mark. He leaves the planet and then stuff keeps
So what are
going
these guys called? Vitruvians or something like
that? Which ones?
The Mark and his father. What's the
Viltrumites.
planet they're from?
Viltrumites.
Viltrumite. Yeah, is the other guy?
Yeah, Conquest is a Viltrumite.
The guy you just mentioned. He's a Viltrumite. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and one of the nastier ones at that.
Yeah, it was interesting in episode 2 of this season where they kind of I mean, all through season 3 they also flash back to what's happening with the dad and Seth Rogen, right?
Yep.
I can't remember the Seth Rogen character name.
Alan the alien.
It's clearly Seth Rogen.
Yeah, Alan the alien.
Alan, yeah. So and this one, the second one was kind of fun with the sort of next generation kind of throw in, but the way they go back and tell the backstory of the society and how what's the father's name again?
Nolan.
Nolan, yeah. How Nolan has to he on his adult day he has to fight his mother and his father, right? And it's really interesting, kind of, because you often wonder like how do they get, and I love the fact in this show that whenever they want to say the word invincible, they don't say it; they just show the
title screen.
Title card.
Yeah. I mean that whole episode is pretty interesting with Alan and Nolan basically trying to gather up weapons and aliens and tools and anything they can to fight the last surviving Viltrumites, right? Because even though we now know that there are only about 50 full Viltrumites alive, that's still enough to do incredible amounts of damage and kill civilizations. So they have to figure out all the tools in the toolbox. And that episode's very funny too. The Nolan and Alan dynamic with Nolan on the sofa while Alan and his girlfriend are in the room.
And then he finds out he could have got his own room. Yeah.
And of course the spoof they did of TNG, of course, with the ship and everything. But
download instead of data.
That's exactly right.
Warg instead of Worf.
Yep. Episode 2 also ends with a pretty big moment because Conquest returns back to Viltrum and reports back that he was unsuccessful, but we actually meet the leader of the Viltrumites for the first time, who is Grand Regent Thrag. And did you recognize Thrag's voice?
Voiced by what's his name, right? The leader's voiced by the guy from *Halt and Catch Fire* and *Foundation*, and
Lee Pace.
Yeah, what's his name?
Lee Pace.
Yes.
Yeah. Very. As soon as, because you hear his voice before you see him, and there's that very sort of haunting. Like Lee's got such a distinctive voice, and you hear it, and you're just like, oh, that's not good. If Lee Pace is here, things have gone off the rails. Good first 2 episodes. Without getting too spoilery, the third and fourth ones. Pretty big important thing happens in episode 3, which will have long lasting repercussions. Part 4, episode 4 from this week, is a bit of a side quest, a fun and interesting one with an incredible guest star. Again, I won't spoil it for you, but by the time you get there, there's a very memorable voice. As soon as you hear it, you'll know who you're hearing. This show is fantastic as far as its voice casting, both the primary actors as well as the guest stars they bring in. And yes, the one they brought in for episode 4 is an absolute banger and could not be more perfect. So you will be able to enjoy that. But it's pretty crazy that after 2 weeks, we're already at 4 episodes, 4 weeks to go. Only 8 episodes this season. So and the series, I joined a Facebook group for collectors of Invincible comics and other things, and obviously that's a microcosm, but there's a lot of heat on this. People love this series, are very passionate about it. It definitely has found its niche. I do talk to a lot of people, and maybe it's because it's on Amazon, or maybe it's because it's just kind of hit the right chord, but I know a lot of people who are watching and enjoying this series, so it's interesting. And I've always enjoyed the juxtaposition between it's very bright and colorful. It feels like a 1960s kind of comic book, like a Spider-Man or something like that, but it is very dark and mature and thoughtful. It's almost like a bait and switch. You get brought in by this sort of bright and kind of optimistic and joyful kind of vibe, and then they're like, oh, but also things are really bad and dark and bloody and there's a lot of mental health stuff going on here. There's a lot of emotional stuff going on here, and it's long been one of my favorite comics, and I think they're really doing justice to it here.
Yeah, the illustrations are really cool. Like the Vitramite planet or whatever. Like in the
where they had the
episode.
bodies and stuff. That was really
that was crazy. Yeah.
like the scope,
like snowflakes. No, their bodies.
Yeah, like just it's funny because like again, they could have obviously tried to sort of capture the scope of that in a lot of different ways, but to like they're literally loading like. First you're like, oh, that's thousands, and then it's like, oh, that's hundreds. Oh, and then you realize like, no, this is billions, like most. And you're like, whoa, this has gotten really dark really fast. But yeah, no, it's a really smart series. I think they're doing a real credit to the work that Robert and Ryan Ottley and Corey Walker did on the original series, and it's been a real ride. And I'm, I think sometimes I'm like, could they have done this as a live action? Could they have done it in a different way? But I just think the way that they've, again, captured that sort of comic book vibe, but added this level of sort of darkness and maturity and thoughtfulness to it is it's really good. They've really done something special with it.
Cool. Well, should we move on to our watch list now?
Hells yeah.
Or should we wait?
Let's just wait. Let's just give it some time. Let's let it breathe.
Okay. All right. Yeah, let it age.
Smoke them if you got them, kids.
Well, you only got one watch list.
I do. It's been a bit of a stretch of I'm busy doing a lot of work here on the home, so I haven't had a lot of extra time. But I did finally sit down and watch something that you've already spoken about. But I wanted to give my 2 cents. I watched Begonia with my beautiful wife this week, and I was not sure based on the information I had of the trailer and everything, sort of whether or not this was something that fit into our sort of area of interest. It presented in the trailer and in the promotional material as a little bit of a black comedy, a little bit of a thriller, and it is. But it's definitely really kind of captivating, particularly because it's a very small movie. It's very intimate. There really are only like 5 people in it. I wonder
if it was a COVID movie because
I don't know. I don't know when they filmed it, but yeah, it's interesting. It did remind me a little bit of The Lobster in that, like it just felt like I think one of the reasons why I enjoy Yorgos Lanthimos' movies is that so many of his movies are focused on like intimate conversations between small numbers of people. Poor Things kind of widened that a little bit, and I did enjoy that as well. But the favorite really came down to like 3 or 4, really 3 incredible, talented women performing off of each other, and I thought that's why that movie was just such a great success. This felt like that too. Like it was really just an opportunity for Jesse Plemons and Emma Stone in particular to really just kind of work together, play off each other, build tension, build emotion. There was a lot of layers to it, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. Do I think it was better than One Battle or Sinners? Probably not quite at that level, but I'm always in. I have been a fan of Lanthimos since I saw The Lobster 15 years ago. I've never gone back and watched any of his Greek movies, but I have seen pretty much anything he's done in English language, and I'm in. I think he's a director and a writer worth checking in on, no matter what he's working on, and the relationship he's developed with first Emma and now Jesse Plemons. He really just seems to tap into these actors and just bring something out. Again, she was nominated for an Academy Award for this role, and I think justifiably she's pretty damn compelling. I really enjoyed it, and I would say if you are curious as to whether you should add it to your list, I would say it definitely fits in this world that we cover on this podcast enough that it's worth checking in on for sure.
Yeah, no, it was pretty enjoyable movie. It's strange, right?
It is, and you're really not sure. You think you kind of know where things are going, and then there's a few like sort of sideways turns, and but yeah, it definitely holds you. You're pretty engaged as you go through it. You definitely realize you're kind of just, and again, I think it's because of its intimate nature. You spend so much time with just such a handful of people in such a contained environment. There's only 2 places. Like, they only go to 3 places in the entire movie, and most of the movie is in one of 2 places. It's centered around primarily 4 characters, and one of them is only in like 20% of the movie. Like, it really is very, very, very at its root intimate and sparse, but also like just intense. Like the conversations, the body language, everything that Plemons and Stone are doing when they're doing their scenes together is just, it's really, really compelling. So yeah, it really interestingly made, and really the score is really unique, like very interesting. Again, sparse but kind of haunting, and adds a lot of layers to the sort of overall tension of the movie. Yeah, I thought it was really, really well done. If you're a fan of that sort of dark comedy thriller kind of vibe, it definitely will hit that sweet spot, I would say.
And there's an interesting thing too. The cousin, Aidan Deblees, is apparently the director picked him out because he's a neurodivergent, non-professional actor, right? So he really does sort of give a very innocent sort of portrayal, right?
Well, and just honest. Like, it felt very honest. It didn't feel like he was fabricating something. It felt like he was tapping into something that was very real.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, I got a bunch of things, but the one main highlight is the third one, but we'll get to that. So I did manage, the Dark Tower, I think, just came out recently on one of the services. So I finally sat down and watched that. It was okay. I guess it was a comic book, you said, right? Or Stephen King's novel?
It was based on a novel. There have been comic book adaptations, but primarily it's known as a Stephen King series of novels.
Oh, is it a series? Okay, yeah. Because it's very, I don't know, it was good, but it was a bit like Alice in Wonderland, Harry Potter, You're a Wizard Now kind of thing, right? So, but the characters are good, and McConaughey is really, interesting as the bad guy, right? But, yeah, and the, portals and stuff like that. Children of Men, which isn't available on any streaming service, but was available for $4.99 Canadian on iTunes a few weeks ago. It was one of my favorite movies. I wanted to watch it again because we were talking about oneers in the last couple of years, right? So, and that was one of the first movies that had oneer scenes in it, and they weren't as long as I remembered, but there are some pretty cool ones, and they made special. I remember seeing the making of. They did special rigs and stuff like that. Like there's one scene of a oneer where you're in the middle of a car, and there are 5 actors in the car, and you're looking around at the 5 actors. Well, they had a special rig camera on a dolly to do that scene, right? So, which is really kind of cool. And you see people running in from the hills on the side and stuff like that. So, but it's a really good, compelling sci-fi story. Very much, very, very, very science fiction. It takes place. I think it takes place this year. Actually, it was like made years ago, but I think it's pretty close to the time that we're in right now. But it's kind of like, what if the world had just gone to heck and nobody could, basically women couldn't get pregnant anymore, right? And I read in the notes that in the book it was the men who couldn't produce sperm. So yeah, which is kind of weird because you can always make babies without men. I know men don't like to hear that, but it's true. Okay, so I saw this other movie twice. We talked about it last time we recorded, because then the following day I had a ticket to go see Project Hail Mary in 70mm at the Varsity Theater.
Mm-hmm.
And while it is a true 70mm projection, and it was filmed because you could see cigarette burns in the corners when they changed reels, right?
Do they still have to smoke cigarettes to do that?
Sorry, they used to back in the old days, but yeah, no, and actually, we probably did smoke cigarettes in that same theater back in the day, back in the 70s. But yeah, because the way it was is you had the center aisle and you had the sort of smaller aisles on either side on the wings. You could smoke in the wings, you couldn't smoke in the center, which made no sense because anywhere you smoked in a room just filled up with smoke. But anyway, we digress. The 70mm, it's first of all, it's a great movie. It's an amazing movie. It's fun. It's lots of, and I said to Jonathan in Slack earlier this week that it's worth seeing twice because there's a lot of sort of little Easter egg kind of stuff in there that you'll miss the first time through. And actually, there's a bunch of, probably put links in the show notes, but Adam Savage went and visited the set. He went and visited the Zero G set, and he visited the costume makers, the people who make the spacesuit for Ryan Gosling, and there's all kinds of interviews on YouTube. I don't know if you've seen any of them about the with Ryan Gosling and about the two Lord Miller and a few of them, and the cast and the guy who plays Rocky, right? The guy who voices Rocky in the end. But then I went and saw this the week before. It was like a week before preview, and it was playing in a few theaters like around the city. There was like but their seats were all pretty much sold out. And then I remembered the Varsity is, even though it's 70 millimeter, it's a very small screen by today's standards, right? Almost like, yeah, I mean, I sat in row like J because it was like, you want to be up close because it's that small of a screen, right? But then I got to see it in the best IMAX we have in the city right now, which is the Scotiabank Theater. I saw that the day it came out on the 19th. I guess it came out on the 20th, and I got a ticket on the 19th. I missed the pins. They were giving away pins at the IMAX pre-release shows. But I gotta say, if you have a chance to see this movie in IMAX, I highly, highly recommend seeing it in IMAX. And I say that over the 70 millimeters, the IMAX presentation is that much better. What's weird about the 70 millimeters, there's a lot of flashback scenes in the movie, and they actually came out and explained to the audience that some of the scenes don't fill the entire screen, and that's intentional, right? And we were joking about the Nolanization or the Nolan factor, where even some of the trailers I watched, so I got to see the Dune trailer and I got to see a few other trailers of stuff that's coming out on IMAX. Now I can't remember what they were, but what I did notice is that like he did in The Dark Knight, where he had some screens that were full IMAX, like the whole screen was filled with image, and then he had the rest of the movie which had black bars top and bottom, right, to bring it down into, because the amount of the cost of doing the filming on those cameras was challenging, right? But now it's kind of like everybody kind of does it now. They show parts of the thing full screen, and then parts of the other scenes will be like just with black bars, kind of more movie-like, you know? So it's interesting how even in the trailers they switch back and forth between the full and partial screens, right? But and there's a reason why they do the full and partial screen thing in the story. Jonathan probably knows why I'm saying that, but I'm not going to spoil it for people as to why they did that. But once you see it, you'll see the reason why they do it that way. But yeah, I sent you a screenshot of the very the end of the movie just to show you how big it looks on IMAX, right? Yeah, and then the other thing too is coming up next week, the 1st of April, April Fool's Day, is the 50th anniversary of the foundation of the Apple computer as they were first known back in the day. So David Pogue has written a book called Apple, the First 50 Years, and I've been listening to that. And that's where I mentioned the thing I saw or heard about Apple TV. But and it goes through, and it's funny. It's funny the stuff that I have forgotten about, the history of Apple, because I've been there the whole time. I mean, not the whole time. I mean, I got my first computer in '89, which is like, I guess, first Mac, I should say, because Mac came out just as I graduated university, and within 3 years I was working on a Mac. But yeah, and people have joined Macs, at various stages of their career. You got a Mac when you went to university, I think, right?
I did, yeah.
And and I think we had a Mac in the house for a while too, but I don't remember how much you used it or not. But
it was the first personal computer I ever used.
The Mac?
Yeah, I mean, not counting a Commodore 64, it was the first real functional PC computer that was in our house. So yeah,
was the old Mac too? Yeah,
yep.
yeah. I mean, so. But it's definitely, if you're into Apple, I recommend the audiobook because it's 600 pages long, unless you really want I mean, it's going to be on my wish list. Obviously, I haven't bought a copy of the book yet. It's an expensive book, but the audiobook was definitely worth it. I had a credit, and to get 21 hours of David Pogue explaining Apple history to me for one Amazon credit was worthwhile, right? So, highly recommend that book. But yeah, definitely. If the bottom line TLDR, if you see nothing, go see Project Hail Mary in the theater if you can. I mean, I know some people want to wait for it on home release, but it's a fun movie to watch in a crowd with other people because you'll laugh, you'll cry, you'll save $5. Okay, you may not save $5. You'll spend $50 or whatever. All right. Well, I guess that's it for another week. So, Jonathan, if people were in touch with you, where would they find you?
Oh boy. Well, I encourage you to join our Slack channel because that's where we spend most of our time sharing fun, nerdy things with one another. If you aren't there yet and you want to find me on the other stuff, I guess Instagram, I'm at JPK News, and our beloved Canadian social media network, I am at JPK.
All right. And well, my name is Tim Mitra, TIMMITRA, as I say every week. And I can be found on Bluesky, Mastodon, Instagram, Threads, and Substack. So until next time, we'll see you in the future. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Spotcast podcast. If you want to find out more about the podcast or see the episode show notes, visit the Spotcast website at spotcast.com. If you have feedback or questions, you can get in touch with us on the website. If you like the show, please consider recommending us to a friend, writing a review on iTunes, or pledging any amount at patreon.com/spotcast. You can find details on how to help us on our website, spotcast.com/sponsor us. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the future.
I didn't, but Xavier's was, it's different down here. So Xavier's his reading week was the first week of March. So
reading week, yeah.
Yeah, so it's long.
Oh, was it a long time ago? Okay.
Yeah. He came back for the week and we did a whole bunch of stuff. And then once we did that stuff, then I could work on other stuff. So yeah, made a lot of progress around here in the last month. But that is how I'm spending almost all of my free time now is building things, fixing things, emptying boxes. My goal is to really cut down on the amount of boxes that we have here this year. So the entire rec room is pretty much done now, with the exception of a few video game systems that need to be hooked up. But all the shelves are up, all the games are out, all the movies are out, pool tables set up, the hockey tables rebuilt, so it's all good to go. Moved Xavier from the apartment down.
Yeah, we got you some IKEA pegs Carol ordered from.
Xavier moved his stuff downstairs to Faye's room, and Faye and her girlfriends moved up to the apartment upstairs for a little more space, because Xavier is only living here in short spurts over the next year or so. So it didn't really make sense to have this big empty apartment when there was 3 of them crammed into a room. So they have moved up there and set up Zave's new room and got all that going. Got the guest room set up with a fine desk in it in case anybody needs to do some work while they're staying with us. And yeah.
There was a desk when I was there.
There was, but then it was also filled with boxes and other things. Now it actually has a bed and bedside tables, a lamp, a dresser, a desk with a chair, and it's a whole thing. Yep, and it's fancy. So yeah, it's. So
you're in the room that faces the lake as well, or the
faces
water?
the river. Yeah. So I'm right below the living room, and so my right in front of my desk is a 8-foot window that looks out onto the backyard and then down to the village below. And I got a TV in here now. I got all my books and bookcases, and it's quite a thing. Still have to get the fireplace fixed, but that's down the road.
Is it like a propane thing, or
no? There's actually a wood stove in here, but I had a guy come and take a look at it, and he basically said, we need to basically put in a proper sleeve inside this whole thing. Can we wait until spring to do that so that I don't fall off your roof and end up in the St. John River? And I said, yes, that's fine. So now that we're getting into the warmer weather, I'll have them come at some point this year and do that before next fall. So I have a full working wood stove down here as well.
Neato, Chiquino.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's going to be, you'll be pretty surprised by the progress here.
Progress you've made?
Yeah. I must admit, I was thinking of you as I've been doing all this work, because I was thinking, it's really great. It really is to have things set up the way you actually envision them. and to be able to actually like put all your stuff where you want it to be and be able to get at it and enjoy it. And I'm like, God, this is wonderful. I'm like, Tim should have this. Tim should experience this. Like, you can actually like get to the stuff that you love and enjoy it, and have space set up that you can, you're not digging through boxes and
I have a pretty good idea where most of my stuff is, generally speaking. I just have to dig it out all the time and put it back when I'm done.
Yeah,
right?
that's the rub, right? But it's been a very busy stretch, but I mean, when Zave was here, we ran all the speaker wiring, underfloor speaker wiring for the rec room. So we got a 7.1 stereo set up now, and we really need a bigger TV for that room because it's not bad, but it's a little small for the space. So I got to save my shekels. And
which TV is that? Which room? Oh, in the big rec room?
The big rec room, yeah. We've got my 55-inch TV in there, which is not bad because we basically kept it like nice and cozy with the couch, so it's not bad, but it definitely feel like that room could use a bigger, more impactful something. But I got to save my shekels, so...
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, we have a big red shiny car now that's...
Yeah.
Took a big chunk of our savings, but
But at least it's a nice new car that's safe and modern and all that stuff.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's kind of, it's also green too. We've wanted to go green for years and years and years. And actually, since the gas prices went up in the last couple of weeks, we're kind of laughing at the price of gas. But I did have to spend extra money. I had to go get a thing put on. They put these RFID tags in, and they etch the window, and it's registered with whatever, in case it ever decides to leave my driveway. By somebody taking it.
So that is the paranoia of a newer car.
Yeah, and especially this one because it's like it's the top of the line.
Yeah.
EV or plug-in EV, right?
Yeah.
Cool. All right.
I will
talk at you later.
Next week.
Okay. Bye.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial. If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.